At 3 in the morning, a solitary watchkeeper stands on the darkened bridge of a bull carrier in the middle of the Pacific. Outside the glass is nothing but thousands of miles of pitch-black water. The physical and psychological isolation is absolute. Yet this single individual is part of a 1.89 million strong workforce that carries the weight of global economic survival. These unseen men and women facilitate the physical movement of approximately 90% of the world's physical commodities. For up to 9 months at a time, they execute high-consequence industrial labor while confined to a vibrating steel island. Their daily reality is defined by shifting time zones and total separation from their families. The maritime industry engineers its vessels for absolute survival against the crushing forces of the ocean. However, the structural systems designed to support the people who operate those vessels frequently offer very little grace in return.
To govern human welfare at sea, the international community relies on the Maritime Labor Convention of 2006, referred to as the Seafarers' Bill of Rights. On paper, it is a cohesive regulatory framework. It explicitly guarantees a safe workplace, decent living accommodations, access to medical care, strict minimum rest hours, and the right to shore leave. But when a vessel arrives in port, that framework often fractures. Port state control inspectors check fire doors and lifeboats to verify safety compliance, but the commercial demand for rapid cargo throughput frequently overshadows checks on human welfare. A forged rest hour record looks identical to an accurate one. Because of commercial repercussions, crews are often too intimidated by employers to speak the truth to inspectors, choosing operational compliance over their own recovery. This bar chart visualizes the resulting confinement. Over a quarter of surveyed seafarers received absolutely no shore leave during their entire contract, and a third managed to step ashore only once or twice in 6 months. These regulations lose their meaning when a ship's operational schedule makes it physically impossible for the crew to exercise their legal rights. This confinement creates a psychological crisis that the industry can no longer ignore. The rigid, traditional hierarchy of a ship makes it difficult for crew members to safely express negative emotions to their superiors, causing mental burdens to accumulate in silence. At the same time, grueling watchkeeping patterns constantly disrupt natural circadian rhythms. Fatigue management becomes an impossible task, leading directly to cognitive impairment. Modern connectivity has introduced a specific psychological strain. Seafarers are connected to their families via brief satellite calls, making them acutely aware of crises back home, while they remain physically trapped in a vibrating steel box thousands of miles away. The consequences are documented in the data. Research shows that between 20 and 25% of active seafarers exhibit symptoms consistent with clinical depression, a rate significantly higher than comparable shore-based populations. Rather than addressing the root operational causes of this isolation, the global supply chain has historically monetized the symptoms of an exhausted workforce. In 2020, the global COVID-19 pandemic exposed the fundamental fragility of the seafaring welfare system. When borders closed overnight, the routine cycle of roughly 100,000 global crew repatriations each month came to an abrupt halt. At the peak of the crisis, approximately 400,000 seafarers were stranded at sea on legally expired contracts. They navigated infectious ports without access to shoreside medical assistance or basic dental care. Companies used the legal cover of force majeure to extend employment contracts against the crew's will. During this period, 95% of surveyed seafarers were denied all shore leave. The trauma of this period left a permanent scar. Once they finally reached home, thousands of experienced professionals chose to leave the sea permanently, disillusioned by the disregard for their basic welfare. The pandemic demonstrated a clear industry priority. When the global supply chain was under stress, the movement of cargo was maintained at the direct expense of the crew's fundamental rights. As the industry looks toward 2040, the incoming technological revolution demands a departure from the maritime world's traditionally isolated working culture. Currently, women make up only 2% of the workforce. The shipboard environment has been structurally designed for men for decades, leaving female seafarers to navigate systemic bias and social isolation that results in lower average happiness levels. This lack of diversity coincides with a massive training challenge. To meet decarbonization targets, future crews will have to handle highly toxic, invisible fuels like ammonia and methanol. The traditional sailor must become a highly specialized systems engineer. This progress gauge highlights the gap in readiness. While the order book for alternative fuel ships is growing, industry workforce assessments score a dismal 27% alignment on energy transition training. The rush toward automation also raises concerns that AI will be used merely to reduce already low manning levels. If autonomous systems are used to erase the seafarer from the equation, rather than enhancing their safety, the ocean becomes a more dangerous place. Decarbonizing and digitizing the global fleet is impossible without a parallel investment in the education and safety of the human beings who actually operate these ships. At the end of a 9-month contract, a seafarer finally walks down the gangway to begin the long journey back to their family. They leave behind an industry of sharp contradictions. In 2024, as major shipping companies reported record multi-billion-dollar profits, the number of seafarers abandoned by shipowners without wages or food surged by 136%.